Hello and welcome. It's time for the abbreviated West Virginia University football podcast at earsports.com. I am Mike Casazza here to get you ready for the 11th of 12 regular season football games for the Mountaineers. Notice how I emphasize regular season because if you've noticed, the Mountaineers are talking about the 13th game, the one that's not on the schedule, the one they could get in their back pockets if they get back to business Saturday with a win against Arizona State, and then one more after an open week at home against Texas Tech. Ooh, boy, you need to dream a little bit, need a few good things to happen to you along the way. And you also, well, you need a podcast about WVU. Three topics on the tip of our tongue to get you ready for kickoff. Today, the W stands for West, which is where West Virginia will be headed for Saturday's game. Arizona State, 6-3 overall, 4-2 in the Big 12. This game will be on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. If you liked last week's production from Morgantown, you might be in for a surprise on this one here. Lots of cameras following the team around this week to get ready for the broadcast. Seems like we might have new friends on the media block here. If you're tired of ESPN, hey, new media partners, new delivery, right? Good thing here. Anyhow, road game against Arizona State. The Sun Devils are limping to the finish here. Sam Levitt out for the year. Jordan Tyson, the star receiver, maybe one of the best players in the country, unlikely to play this week. Formidable opponent. Things aren't going well. Boy, it just happens to fall in West Virginia's way at this time of the year. Could be worse right now, but everything seems to be going in the favor of the Mountaineers. You're not going to complain about other teams' injuries at this point and what it means to your likelihood to succeed. That said, this will be a challenge. Arizona State, tough team, a lot of continuity returning this season from last season's Big 12 championship college football playoff team. Just haven't won all the close games like they did last year. Still win a bunch of them, though. And that's why they are still above 500 and still thinking about how far they can go with a hand that isn't what they expect to be playing with this season. And they'd won 10 in a row at home before their last loss in their last game at home against Houston. And who beat Houston just a couple of weeks ago? This will be the third game between the two, if you are a historian. It's the third one in Arizona as well. The two played in the memorable Cactus Bowl in the baseball stadium at the end of the 2015 season. They also played a regular season game on November 17th, 1979, all the good old days when there were no conference affiliation for West Virginia. Just play who you want, where you want, when you want. That Sun Devils team, pretty good. Mike Pagel, Mark Malone at quarterback, Gerald Riggs at running back. Lopsided win for the Sun Devils. Also the last game for Frank Cignetti as the head coach. West Virginia won a road game at Arizona against the Wildcats last season and won a game on the road the last time it left town against Houston. You know, you might trace this team's performance through its road games this year. The first one was a loss to Ohio, and that was an eye-opener that's proved costly. Here's a team trying to get bowl eligible with 2 games to go. You'd like to have that one back, but play poorly on the road against a MAC team, drop a game, you're going to hurt your postseason chances. You lose on the road to Kansas. That was a bit of a reset, maybe even a step back, following all the highs from the backyard brawl. Lost to BYU saw a new direction in offense with Khalil Wilkins and a bit more competitiveness than the prior losses. The loss to UCF, maybe another step back and another reset because it's so flat coming out of the open week, even though they'd played so well against BYU before the open week. And again, had new direction on offense with Scotty Fox. And maybe everything turned a corner in that game, too. Yeah, big time disappointment in the loss. But it sounds like that was the line in the sand for Rich Rodriguez, and that's when and why he decided to maybe change things up a little bit with practice, make them more meaningful and less monotonous. Not an easy task that time of the season when your team is stuck in a losing streak like that. We've seen better play the last 3 games. We've seen 2 wins. We've seen 1 road win. West Virginia would like for this to not be their last game away from home because a win keeps the Mountaineers alive for postseason play. Simple goal for you here. Score 42 points. Easier said than done, right? That said, Arizona State has hit 42 twice against West Virginia in their history. 42-7 win back in 1979, 43-42 loss in the bowl game. The V today stands for versatile, and maybe that's just a layup. Maybe we're prisoners of the moment. Maybe we like the flavor of the day. Tastes good? Keep it coming, right? Whatever the case, we observed West Virginia's issues with running back play. Injuries and shortcoming in short yardage situations probably had a lot to do with the offensive performances. It's hard to win games and you can't stay on the field. Hard to stay on the field and you can't pick up those gimmies. But how about these past two games when it is third down and 4 yards or less? The offense is 6 for 9 with a touchdown. When it's fourth down and you need 4 yards or less, 5 for 5 with two touchdowns. So they've run the ball 11 times for success in 14 third or fourth down situations, a marked improvement for where things were before. Only some of that is Curtis Jones, but it's something we do have to talk about. He ran 3 times against Colorado, scored twice in goal line situations. That included a fourth down and a third down score. He is a defensive player. He plays bandit. He also learning to play that nickel spur, which is not quite bandit, but not too dissimilar. It still causes him to splinter his practice and preparation time a little bit. He's also on 3 special teams units and not always the same 3. He's innovation. He's also inspiration. The coaches say that as the roster cap settle and the number of players at your disposal lower, they're going to look for and even favor players in recruiting who can give you more than one position on offense and defense, and maybe even more just offense or just defense. This is not unique. The Mountaineers have played a handful of teams this year who have used defensive players on offense with results. Nevertheless, interesting and encouraging to hear, but also see this taking place with rewards. It's one thing to talk about it, another thing to be about it, and then something very different when you do have positive reinforcement in the form of touchdowns, right? Mountaineers are wrapping up their recruiting class, and what do they say? They're looking for these players who can help you out in multiple ways, not just offense, not just defense, not just one position. If they're good enough to do it in high school, Rich Rodriguez said, they could be good enough to do it in college. The U today stands for uneventful. Oh, probably a welcome relief here for the Mountaineers because you have to stop and think about the last time they had a ho-hum mentality during a game week. Just feels like everything was so urgent when things got going. Rich Rodriguez is back. Roster turnover. Everything's new. Schedule might be tough. Pick game right after the Ohio loss. All these things, very, very urgent. Like I said, sometimes I felt like the roof was on fire, or the walls were cracking, or the floor was crumbling. Sometimes more than one of those at once. You had injuries at key positions. You weren't sure about the status of a player. You had a lengthening losing streak. You had growing margins of defeat. Key transfers who weren't playing on and on and on. I don't have to say anymore. I'm not a negative Nelly. But we would get together on Tuesdays for the news conferences, and it seemed like we were trying to figure out what was wrong and why, rather than what was happening next. It seemed like it's changed, and this week's news conference was about as bland, as pleasantly bland as you'll find, especially for a team that's still 2 games under 500. But is clearly playing better, or at least closer to the coach's level of satisfaction. That can be good. Safe to say the Mountaineers have spent so much time cleaning up messes, trying to offer maintenance to those annoying little problems that get in the way, stunt their growth and development. If you can't focus and funnel all your attention and effort into getting things going, it's really hard to take those steps you need to make, especially in the first season. But that has changed, and credit probably goes to everyone here. Coaching staff did not make dramatic or sweeping changes, not to what it does, not to who gets to do it. It would have been easy to respond to the losses and the negativity by making those dramatic or sweeping changes. Much harder to be consistent and have to face the questions, the criticisms, but why you're doing nothing different and why the results aren't changing either. But now it just feels like all the crazy stuff has settled down. Mountaineers find themselves in their same lane, but without all the junk getting in the way like it had been before. And maybe that's why we've seen the progress we have the past few weeks. And maybe this is the time they actually get to put their foot down and accelerate.